Time to bring in CIF Commissioner Jerry Schneep. Jerry, are you ready for the new school year?
Well, it doesn't matter, Paul. It's here. You know, we're ready.
All right, we were mentioning that the season kicks off. My other half wants to have words with you because my summer vacation was non-existent. In fact, it got trimmed considerably with this new August 17th kickoff time.
Well, so a reminder, you're going to make it up on the back end, Paul. You're going to get more of a December. But
everyone thinks it's because the CIF is trying to squeeze in another round of playoffs and to fill their coffers. That is not the case. You enlighten me.
That is not the case. We are not having any more rounds of the playoffs. Schools in California have historically been moving up their start dates, and the state CIF did a survey last year and determined that about 80% of the schools in the state start by the middle of August now.
Now, is that a state phenomenon, or is that happening locally?
It's happening here too. There are definitely schools that are starting earlier, but the survey was throughout the state. Regardless, we're starting earlier to match the state calendar. There are no additional games. We're just starting a week earlier.
My fear is Friday night that the stands are going to be empty because a lot of schools will not be in session. Is that a fear warranted?
Oh, I think it's legitimate. I think it's something we've seen at some schools already. But we had options, Paul. We looked at every option, like eliminating the bye, like having a shorter playoff season, and our schools wanted this model. And so they said they'll have their teams ready, and I think they will, and I think people will show up.
Open division playoffs are also going to be different in that there will only be 4 teams. This is something also that your people voted on. They wanted to go with a smaller elite group and push a lot of good teams down into the down into the lower divisions. Is that, I assume that has your stamp of approval on it?
It does. I think it's exciting. I think the concept of 4 teams in the open makes it truly elite. I think it'll make our Division I much stronger and the other divisions stronger as well. And it's all about competition, Paul. And so those 7 and 8 teams that didn't really like being in the open are now going to be competing in Division I. It's going to make our playoffs better. We're excited.
All right. You know, I skipped past something. I want to go back to it. The NC2A is dealing with a college basketball issue. They're trying to clean up college basketball. And one of the ways they're doing it is by eliminating a lot of the rules that were broken that got schools into trouble. I would argue, or have often said, that I think the CIF is kind of doing the same thing as it relates to the transfer rules. It seems, the perception is that kids are, it's like the wild, wild west out there. They can transfer anywhere they want to. I know you take great umbrage with that interpretation, so I thought it would only be fair to have you sit and tell me why I am so wrong that it is not the wild, wild west as it relates to athletes transferring.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. It's not, Paul. We changed a rule 4 years ago that didn't make kids ineligible for the entire season, pretty much half the season. And I think it's been a positive rule change. We have the same number of transfers this year as we did last year, as we did the year before. 98% of the kids who play sports in San Diego in high school stay at their schools, and about 2% transfer every year. I think we're more aware of the transfers now, and I think some high-profile transfers have happened. But we're not getting any more kids change schools, and there are also a lot of kids being determined ineligible or being limited in their eligibility.
How much of your day-to-day is taken up by dealing with transfers?
Start of each season, a lot. My guess is 75%. John Labita's, the assistant commissioner, is probably 100%. We deal with it a lot.
Are you the final say?
Yes.
So some parents are going to be really upset with you.
There always are, Paul. But I can tell you we're consistent. We apply the rules the same to everybody. And, you know, you don't know that when you know some kids get eligible and some don't. But there's always circumstances that we have to apply to our rules.
The problem is you don't have time to say, hey, the reason why Joey is eligible and Charlie isn't. You don't have time to.
We don't have time, and we can't reveal student information either.
All right. So before we continue, well, I want you to hear. We had Bert Grossman, former Hoover coach, former Charger. He was in this chair, and we were talking about this young man at Crawford who, back in 2015, was on the field. A referee was injured. The referee sued the kid. The kid didn't show up in court, and now there's a $1 million judgment against him. Take a listen to Bert Grossman.
He sued him for, I think he got a judgment against him for like $1 million. And I had no idea about the story till I saw the GoFundMe page like you, and I was shocked. But you would think You know, Crawford, Hoover, San Diego High, Lincoln, I mean, those areas have enough struggles as it is to just try to get equipment, football, everything else. I don't know what you get out of suing a 17-year-old kid from that has no money to pay.
This has bigger ramifications when in a sport that's already hurt by numbers. Now if you have to worry about being sued
by a referee that you block somebody into, not intentional, not negligent in any way. And again, what do you accomplish by thinking you're going to get a big settlement? I mean, no matter what the judgment is, how's he going to pay $1 million judgment, or how is he ever? You're just ruining a kid's life.
And the commissioner says?
I agree. Bert's right. I don't agree with it at all. And
did this cross your transom when back in 2015?
No, never heard about it till this past spring, Paul, and I was made aware of it then when the judgment had already been handed down. So, you know, I don't know what the answer is, but I don't agree with what happened, and Bert's right.
A local, I guess a lawyer locally is representing pro bono, but, I mean, how can the school... Now that no one wants to take on his judgment, so what can the school district, how do you prevent it from happening again, I guess?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I've talked to San Diego Unified. You know, their legal team has reviewed this. I'm not sure where it stands as far as they're concerned, but I don't know. I'm going to talk to our association.
Is that official still working?
I do not know. I honestly don't know.
Do you know who it is?
I do not know his name.
Well, all right. The reason why you're sitting here is because you want to discuss a very important topic that you're now actively involved in as it relates to mental health, not just with athletes, student athletes, but with students in general. And you're very concerned about the information you're learning.
Yeah, I've learned a lot in the past few months, Paul, because some things were brought to my attention about student mental health. And I think it's something that is exaggerated in athletes, and I think it's more of an issue with student athletes. There's more pressure than there ever has been on student athletes with academics and scholarships and social life. Social media, I think, has exacerbated it. I think kids are more isolated at times because of social media. So I think the pressure has caused more kids to become depressed. I have gotten information about kids having suicidal ideology. So we are partnering with Rady's Children's Hospital to address this. And we're hoping that what we're going to be able to do is provide resources to kids, help identify who needs the help, and improve their quality of life.
So we're not talking about head injuries that relate to the CTE. We're talking about life.
We are.
And do you realize what a tough thing you're taking on, because there's such a stigma attached to mental health, and you know, football players can never show, hey, I'm feeling depressed. It's a hard thing to convey to another kid, much less an adult. No question. How do you overcome those obstacles?
Well, I don't have the answers, Paul. I'm not going to pretend to, but I think Rady's does, and I think they have enough data and information and resources that we're going to be able to find some help and some answers. But to hear of a student athlete committing suicide or discussing it is very bothersome, and I took it very personally when I heard these stories. We've got to do something about it. We've got to help kids that are in these situations that they don't know the answers to. You
know, you say the numbers are higher in San Diego. I find that fascinating. You'd think San Diego would be the utopia where everybody is sugar and spice and everything nice.
Yeah, Rady's shared with me that not teen suicide, but suicide is higher in San Diego than potentially any part of the country. And that's, I don't have the answers to why, but we've got to do something about it.
We will support you in that cause, sir.
Thank you.
Jerry Schneep, the commissioner, always answers every question directed at him, and that's why he's always here. All right, ladies, I'm done. Back to you.